Hi, Brittany. This is Frank Cordero stepping in for Ken Norman on providing feedback for your character modeling. And anyway, I think it's great to get a chance to work with you briefly again towards the end of the program. Just want to say that you've come a long way with regards to your work. And I remember us talking a long time ago about your interest in character, and it's nice to see that you've pursued that in a very robust way. I'm looking at your character here. Cartoony characters, first of all, are some of the most charming, but also some of the most challenging to do as well. So first of all, I want to say overall, you've done a terrific job with getting the feeling of what the character is doing. There's the proportions, for the most part, on the overall side are pretty rock solid. And it's nice to see where it's at now. I'm not sure if this is still a ZBrush sculpt. It looks like it is, just based on the background and how you kind of, I guess, did the renders. So I'm not sure if you're at the point where you're going to retopologize at all, or if this is just where it's going to be at for the purposes of delivering against the goals of your asset delivery. Either way, the feedback that I have is kind of like what I call in the small spaces. In other words, at this point, when you start kind of drilling down character-wise, you start looking for things that the drawing does, and then you try to find ways in the sculpt to reflect some of the choices that the artist did, in drawing, and see if some of those things can sort of match up a little bit more stylistically. One of the hardest things to do is to kind of do something with some level of style and finesse. This is definitely a stylized character. All the choices about the simplification of the ear shape, the way the hat is drawn, the geometric approach to the body styling, and there's a lot of different things here that definitely point to you're going to be making design choices as an artist, and it's your job as an artist to see if you can capitalize on some of that and bring more of that to the table. Right now, my feedback is going to be more just kind of sculpting shapes and touches that could go a little bit further. One thing I would have probably recommended in your sculpt is just to look at the ears a little bit more. For whatever reason, they got a little bit long proportion-wise. They're long this way. And while I think, you have, it might be more that there's less long, but they need to go wider this way, And this drawing is kind of the one that tells me a little bit more about how the top and the bottom kind of go. There's also the shape of it is a little bit more here. It's a little bit tentative, instead of it being more of a full sweeping motion. So I think there's just a little bit more of the sculpting finesse that needs to kind of get in there, and watching for these subtle breaks that come into it. For example, it's very round up here, and here there's a curve, and then it's a break up here, and then it drops down. Those subtleties actually go a long way to kind of getting closer to some of the hitting what I call the stylistic points, really capturing the flavor of the design. Also, hair. Just looking at hair shapes. Hair is some of the toughest to do as a sculpt, but again, looking at the way like these locks kind of come out, where it starts thin, there's a break, and then it kind of does a little bit of a rectangular sharpening, and then comes in. Same thing with this. It's more curves, straight, slight curve, subtle round break, and those are the areas where it starts to really. And I think in some places you did really well with that, and other places where it could just be fine tuned just a little bit more. But I also think that the cheeks could also be pushed in terms of the angularity. I think you kind of made this a little bit more curved than maybe in the drawing it's showing to be. But those are the things that make a character. And if you're going to be working with a character designer or an art director, those little spaces are the things that they're going to be looking for in terms of a level of finish that are going to reflect your control of the medium. And I think that's the kind of stuff that's going to make a difference between you being a promising character sculptor to becoming someone that they can say, yeah, we can trust this sculptor with the vision of making our character and fully and further enhancing that. So looking for those opportunities, things like in this part of the sculpt, it's a little bit kind of sort of warbly or tentative in the shape. Here it should be, you know, yeah, you have to make that sound when you do that, but there's a surety that's missing in this part that's in the drawing. And I think just, you know, again, sometimes when you're still developing as a sculptor in ZBrush, sometimes that, you know, tentativeness will show up in our sculpt and weaken some of these little areas. And again, it's just something that through time and through practice and volume, and it's going to go a long way toward improving and just getting better overall. I do like the simplification of how you handled the drapery and the pants. It's nice. And I also like that you gave it a stab in terms of the color. It's interesting that you chose to kind of add a round shape on the back to the hat. I don't know if this is a suggestion of more fuzziness. So I don't know if that's, it's one of those calls that you have to make, you know, artistically, and that might be something that you might have to kind of, you know, if you're working with an art director to kind of get clarification on what they want, that you chose to make a round shape as to something a little bit more, I don't know, with some fuzziness or with some kind of break in the shape. You know, again, it's a call, and I don't mind it in the sculpt. It actually is a nice visual place of relief. So, you know, again, just be on the lookout for the fact that that might be a departure from the intended goal of the design. One other thing that I want to kind of call out is just if you're going to do texturing of stripes, and I know this is clothing, and I know that this is supposedly some kind of shaggy stuff, but let me go zoom in a little bit closer over here. The application of this stripe feels at places a little tentative, and I'm going to zoom in just a little bit more. I'm not sure if it's a resolution issue. It might be that maybe in ZBrush, you know, your resolution wasn't high enough to crisp this texture out. You might need to go a little higher on your textures, or you may need to crank up the resolution on the actual sculpt. I'm not sure which one it is at this point, but the texturing here feels a little bit like it could be cleaned up a little bit more if you want that. Now, if you want a broken line, I know there's a suggestion of a broken line here. You know, I would say it's got to be deliberate. If you're going to have a show through with a little bit of the other color, that's great. That's my only thing, but it's not a huge thing. It's not a deal breaker by any means. It's probably an indicator that you're still controlling the medium in a way that, you know, some of these other issues also pointed to as well. He's a charming character. Overall, enjoyed seeing this piece, and it's great to see how far you've come since you've been in MCR. And thanks again for letting me contribute to your growth. And, you know, good luck on your further pursuits of character modeling.